With the sequester looming, the Post's David Fahrenthold has been looking at some rather oddball ways the government is spending our tax dollars. One such example took him to Oklahoma, and what he found might surprise you.
Hi, I'm Dave Fahrenthold from the Washington Post, and I'm standing in the middle of an active runway. Well, at least according to the U.S. government, it's an active runway.
It's actually very limited. During the peak season, we'll see 5 to 10 planes a month. During the off season, we could go more than a month without seeing an airplane.
This is Wesley Cheney. He's the golf pro who manages the course next to the Lake Murray State Park Airport. That gives him a good vantage point to watch what happens, or what doesn't happen, at one of the country's least busy airfields. But still, this place stays open. That's because this airport has a secret, a hidden purpose that makes it one of the most interesting stories buried in the federal budget. While it's not good at attracting planes, it's very good at attracting money. Thanks to a law established by Congress, the existence of this airport brings the State Airports Board $150,000 a year, and it doesn't even need to spend that money here.
There hasn't been any really noticeable improvements. They did come in back in 2007 and cut down some trees and install the new windsock. But as far as lighting, there's been no lighting since I've been here. There hasn't been any upkeep on the runway itself.
While the state's airports board says it has spent more than $100,000 to improve this airport since 2007, even more money has been spent elsewhere. In the meantime, the people at this state park had to spend their own time and their own money maintaining an airport that is used by more deer than people.
You'll do mowing and brush hogging every 2 weeks to a month. That could take anywhere.
Richard Keithley is one of the folks who does that kind of labor for the state park. The Parks Department has actually tried to shut the airport down, but its bid was rejected by the State Airports Board. The main reason? Money.
If the airstrip closes tomorrow, then that's what happens. And quite honestly, I mean, it takes some burden off of us if that were to happen.
Dave joins us now. So Dave, this sounds like a bit of a mess.
Well, the interesting thing here is that the people who own the airport are the State Parks Department, and so they don't get any of this money that comes in from the federal government, or they get very little of it, but they have to deal with all the maintenance. You think, well, it's just an airport, it sits there, it doesn't ever get used, but you have to mow the grass, you have to weed whack the edges of it, you have to kill the weeds that come up through the cracks. So there's a lot of money and maintenance and time they put in, and for them, they'd like it if people landed there and used the park, but they don't. So they'd like to shut it down, save the money, save the time. It's another state agency, the Airports Board, the Aeronautics Commission it's called. They get the money, and they're the ones that voted to keep the airport going.
Unless you're really into the airport board in rural Oklahoma, this seems like a hard story to come by. How did you find it?
I found it through, actually, Oklahoma's Senator, Tom Coburn. You would not think this is something that your home state senator would point out, but he is somebody who's really into budget cuts, and every year puts out this thing called the Waste Book. That's sort of like silly things the government spends its money on, in his opinion. And this was in last year's version. Congress
is at a standstill arguing about how to make cuts, spending cuts. This seems like a piecemeal type of thing, you know, $500,000 here in Oklahoma, $500,000 if it's going on somewhere else.
Right.
What's the big picture view of this? I mean, does this add up? Would it not make sense to start here?
Well, it certainly would. It certainly does add up. There are a lot of airports that are like this. I found 100 of them in the country where there's not only where the money comes in, but there's no planes based there and no passengers, sort of like this place. So yes, you'd think maybe this is a place we could start cutting, but Congress has been unwilling to do it so far. In fact, the new Tea Party Congress that we're in right now, they voted to keep this program exactly as it was. Both President George W. Bush and President Obama have tried to kill this program, and Congress has held them off.
What's the view nationwide? Are things like this happening everywhere?
Well, I only know the details of this. I'm sure there are a lot of other things happening that are sort of similar. What you have to remember is that until pretty recently, Congress used pork like this as a way of getting votes. If you needed a bunch of votes, you would think of a way where you could spread out money in a lot of members' districts. And there's almost nothing better than this. This is sort of a carpet bomb of the entire country with pork, because everybody has a little airport here or there in their district. So that kind of thing was used to get votes 10, 12 years ago or even longer, and the spigot is still open. And it's hard to turn it off, because if you turn it off, people in everybody's district suffer. So I think that's been the source of its staying power over the years.
All right, interesting stuff. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.